I've been here at Oak Alley for 12 years. And almost like everyone that visits Oak Alley, you're expecting to see a ghost, although I've never, ever believed it. And I was here as a tour guide for 1 year and never saw anything. And then they made me tour director here at the plantation. And so I'm here every day practically. I close the house almost every day. And one day, after being here maybe 3 or 4 years, I was all alone in the house, and the last tour of the day, the 5:30 tour, was upstairs on the gallery, ready to come down. I'd locked all the doors in the house, and I was sitting by myself in the living room at the piano. And I was just sitting there, just gazing, not really thinking of anything. It was a hot day. I was tired. The sun was beaming through the transom, which was above me, directly down to the bottom of the staircase, which is in the hallway. And that's what I was staring at, just the bottom of the staircase, waiting for that last tour. So I'm sitting there, and here walks this woman, all in black. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how did she get in this house? Everything is locked. So she just stopped, and she sort of just turned toward me, and I stood up, and she just was gone. Well, I think I stopped breathing. It just really frightened me. It really did. And so days, weeks later, nothing. Nobody said, oh, it's in my head. Well, I go into the house one morning, and I go into the hallway, and I glance toward one of the rooms, and I see the bottom of her skirt going into the room. So now she sort of plays with me. She's in the house, and I see her every once in a while. We have had so many psychics visiting us. So I've asked all of them, and they told me that in the 1800s, you were not welcome to visit or to come in to a house for dinner like today. Your children have friends, they come over, we accept that. Well, in the 1800s, it wasn't that way at all. And so it took her a long time to get used to me. And then she finally accepted me as part of Oak Alley. So now that's why she appeared after 3 years of me being here, and now she plays with me, and I see her.
Well, my first experience here, which was somewhat strange, I was sitting on the second floor waiting on my tour to come up the stairs. Well, it was about 4:30 in the evening, and it was pretty quiet. I was getting bored. So I decided to stand up and walk up to the staircase and look down between them. And when I did that, I saw an image of a person, somewhat like a young lady, maybe about 4'10", and she was standing there in what I call was a white dress, something like a little girl's communion dress. But I could only see her shoulders on down. There was no head. So of course there was a chandelier underneath there. So I thought it was, well, perhaps the light hitting me in the eye. So I completely ignored it and went sit down again. Well, about 10 minutes later, I decided to go back and look again, trying to find someone to talk to. And there it was again. And of course, I denied it once again. I just simply returned to where I was, and I said, well, this cannot be possible. Because before, of course, I never believed in ghosts. Now I do have my doubts. And in fact, I kept this secret to myself for weeks because I was only here for a couple of months, and I wasn't sure whether to say anything. Well, I finally decided I would talk to one of the ladies here. And as I started to talk to her and explain it to her, she told me what I saw was the 13-year-old girl who died on the 3rd floor, was one of Mr. Ramon's children back in the 1800s.
I've been a tour guide here for approximately 10 years. For the first 5 or 6 years, I never really believed in as per se ghosts. Okay, a few of the guides has experienced ghosts here at Oak Alley until about 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, I was sitting at the back door, and a tourist that visits the home exits from the back door. And one of the tourists, or guests, I should say, walked up to me and asked, where was the tour guide dressed in black? And I'm like, oh, we don't have a tour guide dressed in black. I says, all of our tour guides are dressed in pastel colors. Okay. Oh no, she said. She was very adamant. There was a tour guide on the second floor on the gallery dressed in black. I'm so sorry, but no, there's no tour guide dressed in black. You must have seen Louise. Okay? And she says, Louise? I says, Louise was Mr. Roman's, one of his daughters. And one day, back in the 1800s, she was coming down the staircase to meet her suitor. And she found he was very intoxicated. She was very upset. So she ran back upstairs, and at the same time, she tripped. One of the bones from her hoop skirt broke, pierced her leg, okay? And gangrene set in, so she lost her leg. Back then, gentlemen wouldn't marry a lady that was deformed or crippled. So she entered the convent in New Orleans. And Louise is the one that started the Carmelite nun order in New Orleans.
One particular day I went upstairs and we went around the front gallery, and as we went to the side gallery, I looked into a window, just glanced in the window, and there were lights in the window shaped like a Christmas tree. And I had never seen that before, and we were about 20 people on the tour that day. And I said, I've never seen this before. And the tourist answered me, it looks like a Christmas tree. It was clear lights, but in the shape of a Christmas tree. And I said, and it was a room that was not used. And I said, well, when I finish the tour, I'm going to go and check out. And they said, I wouldn't go by myself. So when they got out of the tour, everybody finished, I went to the manager and I explained, and we went back where the lights would have been, and the lights were gone. We went into the room, and no one was there, not even a place to plug lights, and there were no lights.
One morning, we were in the hallway, myself and several of the ladies. We were just sitting there waiting for work to start. And all of a sudden, one of the ladies said, do you smell the smoke, the cigar smoke? And just then, I picked up a scent of it, only for a second or two. And the story behind that is that the old gentleman who last lived here, Mr. Stewart, used to smoke cigars. And from time to time, people do smell them. We do not allow smoking in the house, and there were no tourists here at that time. It was still very early. So there's no way to explain the reason for smoke being in the house, especially cigar smoke, as it has such a pungent odor.
One of our tour guides, Pizzi, had a large tour with her one day, and she had a candle that flew across the table, which excited the tourists that were with her. She must have had at least 30 or maybe more. And when they walked out of the house, they were so excited. The story got bigger and bigger. It was almost funny, but I mean, they experienced the candle flying across the table. They were really excited.
This particular day, I was about to give a tour to a large group, a Gray Line bus group. We were about 30 people. We did the living room, and as we do these tours, we close the doors between our groups so that each tour doesn't interfere with each other. So when we finished the dining room, we walked across to when we finished the living room, we walked across to the dining room. As the people were filing in, I was waiting to close the doors, and a candle fell from the candle holder onto the table. I didn't think nothing of it. A gentleman was standing right by it. He placed it back in the candle holder, and we went on with the tour, and I was standing directly opposite, facing on the opposite side of the room, facing the candle where it was. Everybody was like in a semicircle facing me. There was no air coming into the rooms because the doors were closed. I kept on talking for about 2-3 minutes. And as I was talking, that same candle flew halfway across the room, landing half in the middle of the table on the floor. Everybody stayed with their mouth open. I left from the end of the room and I went and I picked up the candle and placed it on the table by the candle holder, not placing it back into the candle holder. When we get to a certain part of that tour, we tell the people we do not go on the 3rd floor because of a fire code. But that particular day, I described we do not enter the 3rd floor because that's where the ghosts are. Everyone laughed and we went on with the tour. But as you can see the expressions on their faces, everyone was just awed all through the tour with their mouths just gapping. And after the tour finished, everyone, that's all they wanted to talk about was the flying candle.
Well, it was about mid-morning. I was going through what we call the plantation office to a little room behind there, which is a change room for the guides. And as I approached the door, I was about 4 feet from the door. And now the door was closed. There was just a small crack before it was completely closed. And all of a sudden, before I got to the door slammed in my face. It was so loud, it was like a large man would have been behind there and rammed it shut. And really, I stepped back thinking perhaps one of the ladies were in there changing. And so I waited a few minutes, and then I didn't hear anything, so I knocked on the door. No one answered. I opened the door, and no one was in there. There is another door that leads out from that room, but when I checked it, the door was locked from the inside. Other people went in the hallway, and they heard this door slam so loudly, they couldn't understand it either. And there was no reason in the world for that door to slam like that, because there was no way a draft could have been created. And actually, I tell you, it left me shaking inside for about 2 hours before I decided to settle down. And I cannot understand it.
One day we received a photograph from this couple from Texas. They had visited us and taken photographs in the house. And when the pictures were developed, they realized that the mannequin in the master bedroom did not look the way that they saw it. One day we received a photograph from this couple from Texas. They had visited us and taken photographs in the house. And when the pictures were developed, they realized that the mannequin in the master bedroom did not look the way that they saw it. In the bedroom, the mannequin is headless, and it has a black dress on it, and it's facing the mirror, and the image of this is also in the mirror that it faces. Well, in their photograph, the mannequin has a head of black hair, but in the mirror, the head's not there. So we have requested the negative, and we blew it up, and sure enough, it's like a woman with long black hair, and her hands are like folded in front of her, but in the mirror, it's the way that it is, no head.